Gutekunst said the timing wasn't great, but they do have the ability to take their time now to fill that role because they are competing with other teams for particular candidates. Gutekunst made his comments down at the NFL Combine. It's a different year for the Packers as they do not have a first-round pick due to the trade for Micah Parsons. And despite Parsons' season ending on the injury reserve, Gutekunst, no regrets with the move.
Couldn't be happier with making that move and what Micah brought to our football team, not only on the field and the way he disrupted offenses and tilted the field in our favor, but he was an excellent addition to our locker room as well, and that's important to us, and I'm excited for what the years to come with him are going to look like.
Some other notes from Gutekunst's time include him saying that running back Josh Jacobs will definitely be back with the team in 2026. Meanwhile, the players going to be taking center stage soon for interviews and workouts this week down in Indy. A pair of former Badgers are there in Vinny Anthony and Mason Reiger.
Every child deserves a fair shot at a bright future. That's why Save the Children Head Start administers Head Start programs in rural America. We leveled the playing field early, helping children start school strong, stay strong, and unlock their full potential. Because education is the best path out of poverty. Learn more at savethechildren.org/Head Start.
Well, it's game day for the Bucks. Going to face off against Miami tonight at Fiserv Forum. Milwaukee going to be looking to bounce back after getting blown out by Toronto on Sunday. Tip is at 7. And Wisconsin is out west. It's beginning a 2-game road trip. First game going to come tomorrow night against Oregon. Tip is at 10. And then the Badgers go to Washington to face the Huskies on Saturday. Tip for that one is at 3. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
All right, we're back. Sorry I was off yesterday. Apologies. I was actually really bummed to be off yesterday. We had to run a best of show. We had to run a pre-recorded show because we were traveling down to the NFL Combine. I was riding down with Bill yesterday, and in order to get here not at midnight or 1 in the morning, we left in the middle of the afternoon, just shortly after Bill's program concluded around 2. So pre-recorded show last night. I would have loved to react to the Olympics and the gold medal game and to talk about some other things. So sorry about that. We're back. We'll be live the rest of the week here at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. I like this place. I've never been down here before. I've done 3 Super Bowls with Bill now, between Vegas and New Orleans and San Francisco just a couple weeks ago. This is my first combine. I like this. I'm a big fan. It's all the people I like, all the people that I find interesting. Let's put it that way. People who write about football, talk about football, cover football, podcast about football, do radio broadcasts about football, all of the football teams themselves, and none of the other stuff. And the celebrity stuff at the Super Bowl, the huge sets, all the pomp and circumstance, the parties, that's pretty cool. But I think this is going to be an awesome week of content, both on Bill's show and for these 2 hours in each of the next couple of nights. So really excited to be here. Apologies again for being off yesterday. We'll get right into it. I want to dig in. This is a busy day because there were a lot of people who took the podium today. Brian Gutekunst spoke. They do that. I don't know if other teams do this or if this is just a Packers thing, but historically, the last couple of years, Brian Gutekunst has met with the media twice at the Combine. He does a very intimate, exclusive gathering with the media in a hotel room or in an undisclosed location. And then he hits the podium as all the other general managers do. And the coaches that are here hit the podium as well. Now, not every coach comes. Matt LaFleur's not here. The Packers coaches don't come because they're like, we could get more work done in Green Bay, which might be true, but I don't know. It's lame. I wish they were down there because then we would get Matt LaFleur on the podium and we'd get to throw questions at him about the machinations of his staff and his roster. Now, he's not down here, but we did speak with Brian Gutekunst today. I have a couple of comments from that press conference that we're going to work into the show. So you'll hear that. I also was able to sneak over and listen to Jeff Hafley's presser, which is a lot of Dolphin stuff and some draft stuff and a lot of stuff that is interesting. It's interesting football commentary, but it's not really pertinent to the show. I did ask him a question about the Packers, and there were some other Packers-related things that are worth reacting to, so I can play that. Jon-Eric Sullivan, the new Packers or former Packers scout turned Dolphins GM, spoke. So we're going to mix in some of that audio as the show goes along tonight. And you're going to hear from those 3 guys. Sam Bruchhaus going to be here in about 15 minutes because we're on location. Sumer Sports is always present at all of these gatherings, and Sam is a show favorite. So he's going to be over here in about 15 minutes. I want to start with some thoughts that I had driving in this morning. Bill and I left the house at 6:30, and we were driving down here to the convention center, which is in downtown Indianapolis. right next to Lucas Oil, and the Pacers Stadium is right down the way too. And it's interesting this week to get a view into, let's call it, the engine of the NFL machine. All of these wheels clicking away, right? All of the reporters and the insiders who are here, who are sharing information that we've probably known to be true for a while, but because general managers are now speaking, coaches are speaking, we start to learn things this week. We start to get into stories and things this week. And it's amazing because in the NFL, even the deadest zones and the quietest stretches of the calendar, the machine just keeps going. I think the best example of the NFL machine is actually the combine. I don't think it's the Super Bowl. I don't think it's the draft. I think it's the combine, because in a real, actual sense, nothing's happening right now. The NFL league year and free agency doesn't begin until March 11th. We're still weeks away. The NFL draft is 2 months away. It's at the end of April. Most teams don't have OTAs until mid-May. Some don't have OTAs until late May. Organized team activities where they bring in rookies and where, it's all voluntary, no contact, no pads. So we're miles away from anything mandatory and padded and where contact is allowed. So we're so far away from anything. There's nothing going on right now. And yet I've bookmarked like 10 stories today, starting on the drive-in with Bill, where we're listening to Pro Football Talk with Florio and Sharif Chambliss. I can't remember who, not Sharif Chambliss, but Shireen Williams. Is that the name? She's really good. She's on Pro Football Talk, and I feel bad that I can't remember her name. We were listening to Florio and his panel, and they were discussing things and talking about things where I'm like, this is an incredible example of the NFL machine just working overtime. It never stops. It might, in fact, to use the show, but it might draw its power from the Racine tunnels. I don't know. Maybe I'm a sucker. Maybe I'm a sheep, and I'm just showing up with my plate and I just want my NFL slop, but I'm getting sucked into it. A lot of these stories, again, starting at like 6:45 this morning, we're driving in listening to Florio, and they're doing a deep dive on George Pickens, who sounds like he's going to get franchise tagged by the Dallas Cowboys. And I find this to be such an interesting example of the NFL machine and how it works. I find this story so juicy because he's, the 10th best wide receiver in the NFL, the 15th best wide receiver. I know he had a pile of yards last year, but if I were to tell you, all right, take a piece of paper and start writing down all of the wide receivers that you would want on your team, if you could add any wide receiver, if you could add any wide receiver to the Packers, list them. And I want you to stop when you get to George Pickens. I mean, how many names? I don't know. 10, 15, 20. It would be a ways down, even though he had a mountain of yards last year. I get it. And yet we are dedicating segments on sports talk radio and television in a week where, again, nothing's going on in the NFL. We're not approaching the new league year. We're not approaching the draft. We're not approaching any practices in which players are expected or unexpected to show up, voluntary or involuntary. And yet we are breaking down whether or not the Cowboys will tag George Pickens, how George Pickens would handle that tag. And again, if it was Jamar Chase or Jackson Smith-Njigba, whose team just won a Super Bowl, and he was unbelievable for that team, right? If we were talking about that guy, it'd make a little bit more sense. But no, we're talking about George Pickens, and I am entranced. So again, I might be a sheep. I might be someone who's just chomping at the bit for any sort of NFL story, but I found myself actually engaged and actually entertained on this thing. George Pickens, by the way, is a player you tag because you want to see him prove it a little longer, right? And it's because you need to see him prove it a little longer that he probably won't play on the tag. Like, remember when the Packers tried to franchise tag Davante Adams, or we were told they were going to franchise tag Davante Adams? And he was never going to do that. He was never going to play on the tag, and he had proven it 10 times over. George Pickens hasn't proven anything, right? He was out to lunch in games last season when he was in a contract year, and there were still games where he kind of checked out, right? So now I'm listening to sports talk radio on the way, and it's like, well, George Pickens and the Cowboys, and it's just like, this is a guy who's the second best receiver on his own team, maybe the 15th, 20th most actual desirable football player, wide receiver in the league at his position. And yet here I am just entranced, which, by the way, not to belabor George Pickens to begin a Wisconsin Sports Talk radio show on February 24th, but out. Smart teams should be not interested at all. And I laughed in the car this morning, and I talked about this with Bill again. Florio suggested, can you imagine George Pickens with Justin Herbert? Can you imagine that? I'm like, yeah, it wouldn't be that good. I have a feeling. I have a feeling that would go full Chargers, that Justin Herbert, like every year that he's been in the league, would probably still be Justin Herbert, that George Pickens would still be George Pickens. But we get so caught up in these offseason storylines, again, even about players that aren't really that good in stretches of the season that aren't really that interesting. But the NFL is just a machine. And the combine, I think, is the best example of that machine and how it works. A few players of interest who were all addressed by their general managers or their coaches earlier today. Big players that this offseason could see come available, maybe retire, maybe come back, maybe be traded, maybe leave in free agency. So Max Crosby is probably the most interesting player. And this might be year 2 or 3 of Max Crosby watch. I'm not sure, because we did this last offseason. I can't remember whether or not we did it 2 off seasons ago, but we for sure did it. Last offseason was a great offseason for edge rusher availability, because we went Max Crosby, TJ Watt, maybe Myles Garrett, and then eventually Micah Parsons. Maybe Myles Garrett and TJ Watt were flip-flopped, but we had a moment with all 4 of those edge rushers, right? Not in a serious way, but in a way where it's like you're living with your single buddies and your friend interacts with a cute girl at the bar once for 90 seconds, and then you get home and he's like, I think she might be the one, man. It's like, probably not. And yet we fill days on, should the Packers trade for Max Crosby? Should the Packers trade for Myles Garrett? Should they trade for TJ Watt? Should they eventually, of course, trade for Micah Parsons, which they did. But this might be year 2 or 3 of Max Crosby watch. John Spytek commented to the media, the Raiders GM, he's here, as all of the general managers are. John Spytek says he expects star defensive end Max Crosby to play for the team in 2026 amid trade speculation. This is courtesy of Ryan McFadden, who covers the league, and others had this, but I'm just looking at Schefter's link. He shared Ryan McFadden's story. The quote is, I do. Spytek said Tuesday at the scouting combine, Max is an elite player and have been very upfront from the start. And when I got here, we're in the business of having really good players on the team, and we need a lot more of them. Raiders fans are probably saying, yes, we do. Crosby is untradeable, just like the first draft pick. Spytek said the Raiders will always listen to trade offers. Quote, I learned a long time ago, always listening. Crosby's name once again appeared in trade rumors ahead of Super Bowl 60. The 5-time Pro Bowler was expected to be traded because he didn't want to go through another rebuild with the Raiders. The Athletic reported that Crosby was especially interested in playing for New England Patriots coach Mike Vrabel. It's also been talked about. I don't know that it's been reported, and I don't know that it's anything concrete, but he's been talked about as a potential match for the Chicago Bears, specifically by Bears people, because he did that podcast with Caleb Williams. And Packers fans, if you're like, oh, that's no reason for there to be rumors, oh, shut up. We do the same thing. Micah Parsons and Jordan Love podcasted once, and we talked about it for 2 years. So it's all in play. It's all fair in the NFL offseason. But Max Crosby, the part of that story that made me laugh is Max Crosby doesn't want to go through another rebuild with the Raiders. It's like, have they the phrasing another rebuild would indicate that at some point the rebuild stopped. And at some point they were competing. Yeah, Kinger on the live stream says the Raiders have been in rebuild mode since 2002. Yeah, that's my point. Kinger, by the way, it's nice to see you on the afternoon live stream. I see Kinger's a Twitch standard on Ebo's show Over the Line in the morning, which I've been tuning into on Twitch because I don't have any social media on my phone. So when I get up in the morning, normally I would scroll Twitter and waste like 20 minutes, which has actually been nice. I've gotten out of bed a lot sooner, but I need something. So I've been popping open Twitch. Fun seeing you in the afternoon crowd, Kinger. But yeah, the Raiders have been rebuild mode forever. Saying Max Crosby doesn't want to go through another rebuild is like, well, that would mean that at some point they stopped rebuilding. And I don't I don't know that they have. Spytek saying that I always listen, that I've learned, I'll answer the phone and I'll listen on anyone. That was also echoed. Jon-Eric Sullivan said a very similar thing at the podium today when he was talking, the new general manager of the Dolphins, who came from the Packers. I stood there and listened to his entire presser just because former Packer Bill had a guest on. I'm like, I might as well go and listen and take some videos. You're going to hear some of that audio later. But he said the same thing. He's like, look, we got plenty of good players on our roster. I'm not in the business of getting rid of them, which is always what general managers say. But he also said, look, nobody's untradeable. If someone calls me, I have a responsibility to listen. And John Spytek, well, he's probably not going to take the podium today, said, yeah, we'd be pretty open to trading Max Crosby. We'd like to trade Max Crosby. Well, if you do that, then teams know that you're in the business of trading him, so they won't blow you away with a trade offer. I have a hard time believing that it makes much sense for the Raiders to hold on to Max Crosby. You say, well, but their culture, but he's a real Raider. It's like, I don't even know what that means anymore, man. They got a new coach again. They're going to draft Fernando Mendoza. I don't know. They should trade Max Crosby. I hope it's not to the Bears. Although he's been dinged up, I don't know. I'm interested to see where, again, Max Crosby watch goes for the second or third year in a row now. A.J. Brown, another player of interest this offseason. I think every year of A.J. Brown's career has been A.J. Brown watch. But Nick Sirianni talked about this today. And I don't know if Howie Roseman wasn't here or for whatever reason, I was just seeing Nick Sirianni quotes about this. I didn't see anything from Howie Roseman. But this is the Sirianni quote. Will A.J. be here next season? I think we're still in a spot. I can't guarantee how anything is going to play out into next season. I'm thinking I'm going to be the coach next season, but can't guarantee you anything past tomorrow. That was his quote. I don't know why the Eagles would keep him. I don't know why A.J. Brown would allow them to keep him. If I was a team looking to acquire, I don't know that I'd want A.J. Brown. I don't know that he's that good anymore. And I know that Jalen Hurts had a poor year. Tom Kelly from WIP joined our show, was around the Packers game, and we talked about this, and Tom Kelly had some great commentary. I played some of the sound on the show, on the Eagles postgame show, which he does on their flagship, WIP. Some great commentary about everyone's mad at Kevin Petula. Everyone's mad about the O-line. Everyone's mad about this. It's like, guys, it's the quarterback. He's not having a good season. So I don't think A.J. Brown was in the best possible position to put up gaudy numbers and play at a really high level this year. But when I did watch the Eagles, and I feel like they were on, primetime slots a good amount, it felt like in the reasonable or, at worst limited opportunities he had to catch the ball, he missed a lot of them. Balls went off his hands. Balls went through his hands. I can think of maybe it was the Chargers game that I think they ended up losing. I can't remember. They all start to run together. But there was a game where I thought Jalen Hurts' best ball the whole night was dropped in a bucket right to A.J. Brown in the end zone, and it went right through his hands. So I don't know that A.J. Brown is the same player that he once was. So the Eagles, the juice isn't worth the squeeze to keep him. And if I'm another team, it's like, look, I'll take him, but you're not getting a first and a third or 2 seconds. Like, I don't think it's the Godfather offer. I think that the A.J. Brown trade could eventually be like, that's it. One of those NFL trades where it's like, that's all that it took to get him was a third rounder, a third and a play or something. I don't know. I don't have value charts in front of me. Lastly, Aaron Rodgers, a player of interest today that was talked about. It felt like at the end of the season that he was done. He was retiring. But it also felt like some change was coming in Pittsburgh. Like they were going to go younger and they were going to rebuild. And then they hired McCarthy and reminded everybody, we're the Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll go 9-8 and you'll like it or we don't care. This was Omar Khan who tweeted about this today. And I'm scrolling through. I bookmarked a bajillion things today. Omar Khan, the door is open to have Aaron Rodgers back. This is from Miles Simmons at Pro Football Talk. Quote, the door's open to have Aaron back. I've had conversations with him. I spoke to him last week. McCarthy's spoken with him. He knows how we feel about him. Right now, we're proceeding as if he's a free agent and he's not on the roster, but he knows how we feel about him. Rodgers, who turned 42 in December, is thought to be contemplating retirement, but Khan noted he doesn't have much of a sense as to whether Rodgers' decision will come down to retiring or playing. With Rodgers as a free agent, he could also end up... that's a good question for Aaron, Khan said. He knows how we feel, and we know how he feels. It was a good experience for both sides. Unfortunately, we didn't reach our goals on winning the games we wanted to win at the end, but there's a mutual respect there. So those are just some of the players of note today that I found interesting. We're going to get audio from Jeff Hafley, from Jon-Eric Sullivan, from Brian Gutekunst, and some others today. Sam Bruchhaus is going to join us later this hour. Mike Clemens will probably at some point just appear. Who knows who else? We're broadcasting here at the Combine. Thanks today to both Road America, our presenting sponsor, on the eastern side of the state, roadamerica.com. Check out their event schedule for the summer. You can get your passes. Make sure that you're blocked off for the vintage weekends or some of the IndyCar stuff or whatever you want to be there for. They are presenting sponsor normally on Monday, but we were off yesterday. So we are broadcasting live today at the NFL Scouting Combine. Thanks to Road America. We'll continue next hitting some of the big stories in the NFL.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, welcome back. Sam Bruchhaus, show favorite, radio row staple, combine staple, going to join us here at the bottom of the hour at 4:30 or so. Sam Bruchhaus from Sumer Sports, broadcasting live here at the NFL Scouting Combine in Indianapolis. Thanks to Road America. We're going to hear a little bit from Brian Gutekunst and Jeff Hafley, Jon-Eric Sullivan, some other Packer-related people today. I'll give you a Goody headline. Zach mentioned this in his update. I think it's interesting. It was unexpected. It took me by surprise. So we'll get to that here in about 5 minutes. But first, because I was off yesterday, and Luke in the Dirt Roads texts in, says, Grant, we can still react to the Olympics. One quick hockey hit. Badgermen were dominant Friday night and probably need 2 more wins to secure a tourney bid. Badgers ladies actually had a better power play with their Olympians anyways. And Team USA, pour yourself a glass of Canadian tears and play Freebird USSSSSSSS. Luke from the Dirt Roads. Okay, I am not a hockey expert, so I'm not going to pretend to sit here and say, I couldn't believe how this game went. Here's some technical break. Here's some hockey, because you all know me better than that. But I did go into this Olympics really excited to watch the hockey. I think mostly in part, maybe fully in part, maybe only because the Four Nations a year ago had me so sucked in and I wanted more of that. And despite what many folks think of my generation, we still do bleed red, white, and blue. I still have that patriotism thing, which I think really we got a good dose of it. The best we probably could have gotten in the year 2026. We're so fragmented. We're watching this little thing, we're watching that little thing. Like in 1980, yeah, it would be easy to get super patriotic because it's a huge upset, but also the whole friggin' country was watching. You know what I mean? Like nowadays, the OJ trial couldn't happen. The Miracle on Ice couldn't happen because we'd watch it and we'd go, that was cool. And then we'd be on to something 6 hours later. So it's never going to feel like it did We're never going to have patriotism like we did. But I think this Olympics with Alyssa Liu, Michaela Schifrin, there's one that I'm forgetting other than the hockey, both men and women's, who's slipping my mind that I watched specifically, but a lot of really cool moments. So the patriotism was great. The hockey, I couldn't believe how that game went down because Canada played the exact type of game they would have wanted to play, right? Which is fast, pressuring the United States, overwhelming the United States, always being down around their goal, flexing their skill and their speed. Like for long stretches of both the second and the third period, it felt like Canada was just on a power play. And even the first goal that the United States scored, it was a breakaway. It wasn't some well-orchestrated back here, pass to here, leave it for this guy, wrap around. Like it was one skater who made an awesome move to split two defenders and a badass, shot to get it around Binnington. I'm not saying it was a fluke, but that's like scoring a touchdown on a 55-yard pass, right? Great. You'll take the points and it counts, but it's not necessarily indicative of how the team is matching up against the other team. Like Canada played the exact type of game that they would have wanted to play coming in. McDavid got a bunch of chances. Makar, who actually was the one who netted one, was everywhere. He's awesome, man. McKinnon had a chance. Celebrini had a breakaway. McDavid and Celebrini both had breakaways that could have given them the lead. Nathan McKinnon had the gold puck on his stick, and he whiffed it. So if you would have told me, or someone who knows a lot more about hockey than me, exactly how that game played out, like there's not many chances, there's not many simulations of that game that end up in the United States winning a gold medal. And they did, because they had some things go their way. They got lucky on that substitution, probably should have been penalized. McKinnon had to whiff the backside goal that, again, gold puck on his stick, just net it. That's a shot he makes 90% of the time, and he whiffed it. But also because Hellebuck stood on his head for basically the entire game, which was bad. And that stick save where he got the paddle on it behind him was badass. And then in overtime, and I listened to a couple hockey podcasts on Sunday just because I had such a bug. I wanted more. It's not enough for people my generation to just watch a sporting event. Once it's done, it's like, where's the content? I need to consume the content, which is probably good for shows like this, because if you watch a big Packers win, it means you're looking for a show like this. So I'm glad that we seek the content. But even in overtime, like friggin' McDavid is trying to go 1-on-3 or 1-on-2 because he's Connor McDavid and he wants his moment for Canada. And then on the other end, and I can't remember who left it for Hughes. Renski, maybe? Like McDavid comes down not to back check, but just to chase because he's trying to get the puck because he wants the puck back instead of waiting and actually covering for Hughes. Like there's a question about, not necessarily about winning quotient for Connor McDavid. I don't know enough to make those declarations, but with all that talent, man, like that's not a gold medal you should let get away. And the Canadians did it. Very satisfying. And then for the Canadians to kind of complain about the format, they're probably right. Like when there was 3 or 4 minutes left, and Eddie Olczyk, I thought on the broadcast, made a great point. And I love watching hockey broadcasts because I actually appreciate the commentators. I'm actually like, thank you for telling me that. Thank you for explaining. Whereas when we watch basketball, hockey, baseball, like I watch all those sports constantly. I'm very rarely being told something that I find really interesting because I watch those sports enough. I know those sports, but hockey, I'm like, thank you, Eddie Olczyk or Kenny Albert. Like I appreciate it. He made the point at a certain stretch late in the third period where it's just like the United States should just want to get this to overtime because you'll take your chances on a 3-on-3. It just makes it kind of fluky, kind of coin flippy. And so I agree that the 3-on-3 probably benefited the United States, but also I have a really hard time with Canada complaining about the format when, your 3-man team is probably you could argue the 3 best players in the world. You could go McKinnon, McDavid, Makar. You could go McKinnon, Celebrini, McDavid, which is the front line. I know you're a little lighter, and Makar is just he's a lot like, well, from what I've come to understand, a lot like Quinn Hughes, where it's like defenseman, but puck advancing defenseman and worthwhile on offense, which was evidenced in regulation. He was the one who nailed the goal. So while I think the flukiness at 3-on-3 benefited the United States, and I guess Canada could have a gripe about that, but also your 3-on-3 unit is still the best in the world, and you had 3 periods to sink one and you couldn't do it. So at a certain point, it's like you had all of regulation to win it, especially as a heavy favorite or the better team or the more skilled team, and you didn't do it. So them's the breaks, man. You get what you get. Hey. Kinger says, what are Grant's thoughts on the women's national team spitting on Trump's invite to the State of the Union address? The men are going, I don't care. I don't care about any of that. I don't care about any of that. I watched the medal celebration and the flags go up, and then I said, I'm going to go along with my day. And that's what you should do as well. Unless you want to go watch CNN or Fox News or MSNBC, then that's your thing. But I don't care. There's a hockey minute or two. Hope you enjoyed. Sam Bruchhaus going to join us next. We're broadcasting live here at the 2026 Scouting Combine. We'll be right back.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, welcome back. Broadcasting live here, the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. Bill is off to the cigar bar. He wants to take me to Skyline. I've never seen Bill as excited about anything. Now, Bill's from this area. He's from Cincinnati. So, like last night, he's telling, this little town here, they got this. And so we're getting Skyline chili tonight. So I'll have to update you tomorrow. Sam Bruchhaus is here. I would say you're a bit of a foodie. You're a cultured man. Maybe not a foodie, but you know a thing or two about food.
Yeah.
That's better. You've had Skyline before? Did we talk about this?
I have not had Skyline before, but I have a notorious trait that makes my sister and her boyfriend be really upset.
Okay.
And that is, I live in New York right now. I'm originally from Southwest Louisiana.
Mm-hmm.
Every time I go to LaGuardia Airport, I typically fly at 4 or 5 p.m.
Yep.
because there's a bunch of good flights.
Mm-hmm.
I go at lunchtime, 5 to 6 hours early, and I eat Jersey Mike's, and I sit and do all the rest of my work for the day. And then I eat a large Wendy's chili with a large fry. Then I get on the plane.
And you get on an airplane.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I if I can just get to bed after Skyline chili tonight, I will be happy.
It seems like a victory, though. Look, I'm going to be honest. Like, I think you're going to like it.
Okay.
To be clear,
I like chili.
I've had like Skyline. I lived in South Bend for a while.
Okay.
And so that's like kind of I don't believe they had a Skyline, but they had like the Skyline stuff you could buy at the grocery store.
Mm-hmm.
And I had it. It's not a beanie chili. I wouldn't describe it as hearty. I would describe it as a little runny, but it's good. It's good.
That's the description for this interview that I'm going to post later. I wouldn't describe it as hearty. I would describe it as runny. We were talking before we went on the air about some draft players and
this is an
prospects.
excellent segue.
Speaking of runny, is Jeremiah Love the most interesting prospect or the most polarizing prospect in this draft for you?
Yeah, I think there's two sides to this face card. The first thing that I'm going to say is I would not draft him in the first round.
Okay.
I'm a data scientist by trade. It is my job to say that.
Yes.
As a former linebacker Notre Dame alum, I think it's completely possible that at his position, he's the best player in the draft.
Okay.
And I think this wasn't necessarily the case with Ashton Genty last year. I think he's better than Ashton
That was going to
Genty.
be my follow-up. Okay.
Yeah, I think he's better than Ashton Genty. But we have seen teams make this mistake over and 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 over again. And I thought we had gotten to a place about 2 years ago where teams just weren't going to make the mistake anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing is that we're not talking about Sonny Styles in this way. And he's a linebacker, and then everyone wants to say he's an off-ball linebacker, and that's why Arvell Reese is better.
Yeah.
So, like, why are we talking about Jeremiah Love in this way? Because he gets more fantasy points? Like, I just don't understand the concept.
He brings a toughness quotient. He brings there's that whole thing, too.
Well, look, I mean, like, you watch the game. Don't get me wrong. Like, I've watched the kid since he was a freshman. I'm a Notre Dame alum, got my master's in Notre Dame, worked for the athletic department. Like, I believe that he will be a good player.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is like you're the Saints and you're sitting there and you're playing Mason Tipton out of Yale at wide receiver. And you have a sophomore quarterback who you kind of believe in. Is Carnell Tate not going to be, or Jordan Tyson or Mekhi Lemon not going to be a value add over Jeremiah Love, who Alvin Kamara was on that team last year. Alvin Kamara, we've seen with Clint Kubiak have a good year. We saw him have a pretty good year last year, but they got good production out of Audric Estime, who they picked up basically off of the heap. So it's like, The problem with the running game is it's not a running league.
Yeah.
And people can say that, oh, well, Kenneth Walker had a couple good games. Kenneth Walker was not an efficient running back all year, and they struggled on offense all year. People can say, well, Saquon Barkley, this, that, and the third. They were just as good, if not, they probably weren't better, but they were just as good when they had DeAndre Swift, et cetera, et cetera. And so, like, the question becomes is the running back position a valuable position? No.
Yeah.
It's been proven time and time again. Saquon Barkley is not on the Giants for a reason. I mean, Derrick Henry is not on the Titans for a reason. Like, Josh Jacobs is not on the Raiders for a reason. Like, it's because those teams weren't good.
Yeah.
It's not because they weren't good. It's because the team wasn't good. And I think we get in this situation where you look at the draft and you try to, like, it's people's job to evaluate position groups because they are all distinct. And thus you put a blue chip grade on a player, and he is a blue chip running back. And you think to yourself, I can't get out of this round with a blue chip player. Well, that's not the way to think about it. You got to think about it in terms of what the actual market value is.
Sure.
And the reality is a running back one in this league is worth $11 to $15 million. That is borderline a wide receiver 3. People didn't just come up with those numbers. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, it just doesn't make sense to me why you would make that move, especially when there are maybe not the tippy top blue chip 10 of 10 players like there are Jeremiah Love. Like, I think he's one of the better running back prospects in a very long time. But there's blue chip players. There's 3 blue chip wide receivers. There's probably 4 borderline blue chip edge rushers, quality tackles all over the first round. And so, I just don't think it makes a ton of sense to do it.
So we were talking about the Raiders and Fernando Mendoza. He's kind of the assumed number 1 pick. That seems like that's the draft will then start at 2.
Right.
The Raiders drafted Genty. They had Pete Carroll coaching. I didn't expect them to be good. I'm kind of still surprised they were as bad as they were. So why did that happen last year, and how did they raise their floor?
I think that there's a couple items of how they're going to raise their floor. I think number one, a critical point that people don't realize, they lost Colton Miller at the left tackle position. And I realize people point to the Chargers and they're like, well, they lost 2 tackles and it worked out. Well, they have a top 5 quarterback in this league. Geno Smith was not that last year, for better or worse. And so when you lose a cornerstone tackle, it hamstrings pretty much everything you could do. Then that running back can't even get to an average level of production, which we saw from Ashton Genty. We still thought he had a good year, all things considered, when it really broke down into the tenth of a second evaluation from the AI. We still thought he had a good year, but it just didn't help the team. And so I think there's a couple things that they're going to do. Number one, they're bringing Clint Kubiak, who will run kind of a player agnostic system. We saw him take advantage of what was originally considered to be not the best offensive line in Seattle. You bring in Darnold in free agency. You have Kenneth Walker and Charbonnet, who people thought weren't really great running backs. And then you elevate, you get I don't know if I want to say get lucky, but Jackson Smith-Njigba turns into the offense player of the year, and you're able to make things happen. I think bringing in that system, particularly getting Colton Miller back, will make things look a lot better. The second thing that they're going to do, which I vehemently disagreed with all season in the context of Sam Darnold, who he would turn the ball over, but he could throw the ball. And you had the offense player of the year at the wide receiver position in Jackson Smith-Njigba. They don't have that with the Raiders. They are going to run the ball a lot. Will it be successful? I don't know. They're also going to run play action and motion a lot. So the keys to the car to at least get up to the speed limit will be there for Fernando Mendoza. And so I do think that there is a slightly higher floor than they had last year, whereas last year you're bringing in a first-round running back. You're bringing in an older quarterback who people had questions about. Now, people thought of really highly at the time, particularly, some of the film community had a really high view on him. We thought that there was more to the story.
Sure. I don't think most people thought he sucked, though. No. You know what I mean?
And I think there were injuries that came of age, and there was a lot of things that went into it. But I think that the Clint Kubiak hire, mixed with the idea that you probably have a top 5 defender on the flip side of the ball, that even should be good, mixed with the fact that you can move your draft capital around in a way where you can maybe go get a tackle around, the 80s to 100s or something like that. You're going to bringing in a quarterback. I think there's a lot that makes sense for this team, at least being a little bit better than they were last year.
Sam Bruchhaus is here, Sumer Sports. What did the data and what did your modeling tell you about the Vikings quarterback, who JJ McCarthy? Because you guys can take out as much context as possible and just evaluate a player. So what did you see from him last year?
For better or worse, we blamed it on him.
Okay. So he was bad. He was bad.
We had Justin Jefferson as an all-pro.
Really?
Yeah. And again, like, we're evaluating, the way this works is we have models that are very similar to the LLMs. And when I say the LLMs, I mean ChatGPT and stuff like that. And if you are reviewing what ChatGPT does, it takes your text and finds the relationship between the messages, which is basically like what we're doing when we're reading.
Mm-hmm.
That's basically what the AI is doing. It's looking at the wide receiver and trying to evaluate the relationship to the tackle and those two relationships to the quarterback. Basically, what we ended up finding was that Darrisaw regressed a little bit, but was still a quality starter. O'Neal was a good player. The offensive line, for the most part, was there. We thought Jordan Mason was okay, an above-average starter. And when it really came down to it, we blamed it on JJ. Like we thought that Justin Jefferson was getting open, period, and they could not get the ball to him. And even when you brought in Wentz, who was able to win some games, I mean, frankly, they both were able to win games, which is kind of shocking. But
Flores,
exactly. But JJ, what we basically found was, and you try to take that data, which is a little black boxy, because like it's difficult to understand the relationships, and you know what the model's doing, but you don't know quite what it's looking at. But it does bring out results, and you can look at the plays. What we were finding was there were plays where they just couldn't get the ball in the air.
Sure.
And I think to a certain degree, you take that scenario, you look at another team, you look at the Bengals. When they brought in Joe Flacco, at least they were getting the ball in the air.
Yeah.
And it made a difference in 2 or 3 games.
That's a good way to describe it.
I think if JJ can just literally get targets, it'll work out a lot better for them next year. And it'll be interesting. Targets of wide receivers.
Like getting shots up in a basketball.
100%. Or it's really like hockey.
Sure.
Like if you get the sausage in the grease pan, it'll get cooked one way or the other.
Mac Jones, Malik Willis, Justin Fields, because the Vikings are, well, Kwesi's gone now, but we assume they have to bring in somebody to compete with McCarthy. Would you go for any of those guys?
If I'm looking at what has succeeded with KOC, the guy who comes to mind is Mac Jones.
Yeah.
I mean, he's literally the king of getting the ball in the air at this point. He's done it twice. He turned Brian Thomas Jr. into a borderline Pro Bowler, which we didn't necessarily see him recreate. We saw him kind of get hit across the middle a lot and then fade, and then all of a sudden become their 9-route guy at the end of the year if he wasn't a target earner. But Mac Jones made that guy look like a target share, yards per route run, holy trinity guy that I thought was going to have an extreme breakout year this year. Didn't end up going that way, but now they have a host of guys that kind of settle that, and the Jaguars are in a good spot. Mac Jones made that team look really good last year, or at least competitive, and then he was able to do it. I mean, he made Kendrick Bourne look good. Now, are you going to get top 10 level play from Mac Jones? Probably not. Like, there's going to be bad plays. He's going to take sacks. Not the most athletic, but you bring up that group. Mac Jones, I think, makes the most sense in terms of what we've seen KOC succeed with.
What team should go balls out to get Malik Willis?
It feels like the Miami Dolphins.
You think so?
Yeah. It feels like the Miami Dolphins.
And it feels like you don't love it.
I mean, the problem is like, I will admit when I'm wrong. I do not think I'm going to be wrong about Jeremiah Love.
Okay.
I was dead wrong about Tua.
Okay.
And I think
you liked him.
And I think the reason why I was wrong was because I was right about Mike McDaniel, where I was under the impression that Mike McDaniel would not lose games. And with a team that broke completely down, he did not lose games. They almost made the playoffs. What I was wrong about was the reason why that would happen. I thought that it would be because the offensive line or the defense struggled. Defense ended up improving as the year went on with Anthony Weaver as defense coordinator, who I thought did a really good job. It was because Tua was cooked.
Yeah.
And I thought that Tua's skill set, which was making quick decisions and getting out the ball laser fast to really, really fast wide receivers, was a certified skill.
Sure.
He just didn't have that skill this year. And so I was wrong about Tua. I think they should go another direction. Can you take your medicine with that contract? It seems like it's a rare time in which you really can't. Should he get another shot? Maybe, but like if you're going to take that Packers universe, bring it down to Miami, try to understand what's going on. I think the Dolphins feel like the one who, at least if you can get Malik Willis on a reasonable contract, like, would I go up to Baker Mayfield's contract? Absolutely not. Would I go up to a reasonable second quarterback? Maybe. I think that's kind of the next step.
Danny Heifetz asked Jon-Eric Sullivan today, so what did you think of Tua last year? He asked it a little bit more delicately, but Jon-Eric Sullivan is like, Well, ask Tua. He'd tell you he has some games he wants back. So it's it's just the money, though. And he also talked about getting their salary cap fixed. Do you have 60 seconds on a player in this draft that you would love for the Green Bay Packers? I know it's very specific and niche.
Yeah, I think you look at the core needs and you got to look at the interior offensive line. And so, like, right now, the guy who I'm kind of obsessing over is Jennings Dunker from Iowa.
Love.
The reason why is because you're going to be able to get him at cost. You're going to be able to get him in the 60s to 70s to 80s, so forth and so on. You're going to be able to kind of get him at the turn of, and I think he's going to get pushed up a little bit in the combine. I think he's going to test well. But I think you could pretty much get him in day 2 solidly. And he just solves so many needs of what we saw the Packers struggle with this year, which is depth, swing offensive lineman. I think he can play the tackle and the guard position. A lot of people just think he can play the guard position. I saw him with a lot of body control at the Senior Bowl and tackles. Most importantly in the data, which is my job. A 10 in initial quickness, a 10 in sustain. He can run block. That's going to make a difference for the Packers.
I'm a fan of all of those things, and I like the thought of an Iowa guy. Why overthink it? Sam Bruchhaus, we will watch your content throughout this week. Appreciate your time.
Thank you very much.
We'll be back next at the Combine.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
With Pella, you get so much more than stunning windows and doors. You get the Pella experience. Pella manufactures, sells, installs, and services every product. And with a 10-year labor warranty, your windows and doors are worry-free for years to come. If something goes wrong, we're here to handle it because you work with the same team from start to finish.
Right now, get 0% interest for up to 48 months.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, welcome back. A couple of minutes. Thanks again to Sam Bruchhaus. It's the Wisco Sports Show, presented by Road America. We're live at the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. Mike Clemens has joined us at the table. So, Mike, I want to do a couple more minutes after 5 o'clock. If you can hang around, we'll do one more segment. But the thing that jumped out to be most, very simply with Goody today, is him saying, yeah, we didn't expect Rich Bisaccia to step down. I thought they kind of would have had an idea, would have had a feeling. Maybe they weren't sure, but they were like, let's get a couple of names ready. It sounds like that wasn't the case.
I guess Rich wasn't sure. And so, a year ago, just in casual, there's many times that some of the writers that cover the team every day, first of all, after about a year, they already anointed Jeff Hafley is going to be a head coach in the NFL.
That was stated very early.
And it's like, well, you're seeing some improvement of the defense. You're hearing good things from the players, and he's a gifted speaker.
Mm-hmm.
But past that, what do we really know about how he's messing things up? And by the way, this guy gets the job with the Dolphins and 2 or 3 other interviews, and he gave up 25 points in the last quarter to the Chicago Bears.
I talked about this with Nagler over there from Cheesehead TV, because something that I heard from Jon-Eric Sullivan today, he was asked in his scrum, the new GM of the Dolphins, about, well, why'd you hire Hafley instead of a couple other guys? And he was also asked, why didn't you maybe interview a couple other guys? And Jon-Eric Sullivan basically said, because if we didn't hire Hafley right away, someone else was going to do it. And Hafley talked about having 6 interviews in 5 days. It just sounded like, between connecting the things that those two said, not only was he getting a head job, he could have had a couple other ones had he not landed with the Dolphins, which, again, I'm impressed with the guy too, but it's not like his defense was unbelievable this year.
I saw Robert Saleh hug Todd Bowles from the Buccaneers today.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if those guys work together or not. I can't remember. There's a club. There's a fact that if you're an NFL coach, all of you are good. You're smart.
Yep.
And there's so many factors. And really, these NFL coaches, they know that there's going to be all kinds of noise and complaints about them and criticism, and maybe even some disagreements from their players and certain reputations. But they're all pretty smart.
Yeah.
They know their craft, their sport, and the rest of it is it's a crapshoot. It's kind of like blaming the weatherman for 2 to 3 inches or 2 to 3 feet of snow in Boston or New York today. By the way, did you hear that a snowball fight broke out in Central Park?
Oh,
it got so out of hand they had to call the police. That's not a joke.
Really? I thought you were setting up a punchline.
No, I know. It sounds like it, doesn't it? Yeah.
You're expecting a joke?
Yeah. No, it's a true story. Somebody had to 911 because it was getting out of hand.
We can't have nice things anymore. We have about.
I think some of these scouts should be there checking out some of those arms. Hey,
I believe so as well.
3/4 is it coming over. Wow.
So we got a break for Zach's update in a minute. Can you give me 30 seconds on your early thoughts, how you think Jon-Eric Sullivan and Hafley will do?
Oh, I think pretty sharp, because you know what? Jon-Eric's already announcing that after he gets off the podium, he's making changes to the front office too.
Okay.
So he's bringing in, he's going to change that scouting department. And that's the difference in why, your Green Bay Packers are always in the hunt every year, and
people up top.
Pretty good rosters overall. And why some of these other teams are these big roller coasters. And so Jon-Eric has obviously gone to the ownership of the Dolphins, say, no, here's what it looks like.
Yeah.
And here's the kind of guys that I need.
And we need to have consistency from one guy to the next. Even if someone leaves, the next guy who slides in has to still believe in our core tenets. He talked about that in his presser today. I have a caller who jokingly referred to, the Ron Wolf way. I had a caller basically refer to it as, the Packers have their 3-ring binder and they just pass it down over the decades. Right. And I think it's actually like a really great way of describing what they do. Can you do one more segment with me after Zach's update?
Sure.
We'll talk about what Goody had to say. Okay, we'll be back. We're live here at the Scouting Combine. Thanks to Road America. 2 minutes. Just the latest in Wisconsin sports from Zach Hopper. No commercials. Don't go anywhere.
is a Wisconsin Sports Zone update.
Well, Packers general manager Brian Gutekunst says much of their 2026 will be determined by guys that are already in his locker room. Speaking at the NFL Combine today, Gutekunst said that because of what they did with Micah Parsons last year, giving him a big contract and trading away a first-round pick, whether or not they're successful this season will be the result of names fans are familiar with and how much they grow this offseason.
I'm excited about that because I really do like the group of guys we have in that locker room. So there's some guys that are really, they're coming into the best. We're a seasoned team, and I think right now what we have to do is we have to be able to get in those moments that we've struggled with the last 2 years and finish them off, and I'm excited about that.
Some other notes from Gutekunst's comments. He said that they were surprised by Rich Bisaccia's decision to step down for some other opportunities. The running back Josh Jacobs will be back in 2026, and that he expects Rashawn Gary to be back as well. As for the Combine itself, there are a pair of former Badgers in attendance, wide receiver Benny Anthony, edge rusher Mason Reiger. The rest of the Badgers are going to get their chance in front of scouts at next week's Pro Day. That coming up on Friday.
Every child deserves a fair shot at a bright future. That's why Save the Children Head Start administers Head Start programs in rural America. We leveled the playing field early, helping children start school strong, stay strong, and unlock their full potential. Because education is the best path out of poverty. Learn more at savethechildren.org/Head Start.
Well, the Badgers are out in Oregon, where they're going to take on the Ducks tomorrow night. Wisconsin 10-3 since starting the Big Ten season 1-2, and hasn't been lined to potentially get a double bye at the Big Ten tournament. Tip tomorrow night is at 10, and the Bucks facing off against the Heat tonight at Fiserv Forum. With this Wisconsin Sports Zone Network update, I'm Zach Heil.
All right, welcome back. Hour number 2. The show is just screaming by. Sam Bruchhaus is excellent. Sumer Sports, nerdy breakdowns of this player and that player and this situation. I want to circle back and hit a couple of those things that he mentioned another time or two. We're also going to hear from Brian Gutekunst, Jon-Eric Sullivan, Jeff Hafley, 2 former Packers guys who spoke today at the Combine. Grab some audio, and I think it's worth talking about. Mike Clemens is back. So you heard from Goody twice today. You were a part of the very exclusive, very intimate hotel room gathering, secret. So you had that conversation. And then also out here at the podium, was there anything, well, there's a lot of stuff that's worthwhile. Where do you want to start? What did you walk away thinking about from that meeting with Goody?
Yeah, this goes back to years ago, maybe Ron Wolf. I don't know how far back. But, there's the calendar is the same year after year after year in the NFL. And this is the start of a new year. So this is the best time that the general managers of these teams, the guys are going to be making these decisions now, interviewing these players that have the potential of being drafted, in a couple of months.
Yep.
Or picked up as a great phrase today from Jon-Eric Sullivan, the new GM of the Dolphins, the former Packer assistant. He said, yeah, what we can do in free agency, what we can do in the draft, or what we can do in practice squad steals.
Sure. PSSs, practice squad steals. I like that.
Yeah, well, and because, again, these guys are out shopping, right? And free agents cost lots of money. Draft picks will cost you some.
Retaining your own players costs money.
Yeah.
Brad Holmes talked about that
But
today.
how many times can you find, a wide receiver, any position, that practice squad guy, and literally be a steal playing for the minimum. So over the years, this was a point where newspaper guys pretty much just talked to these guys. They let me in just a few years ago, because you're there every day, right? And thanks to the Zone and Madison and Bill Michaels show and you guys, that helps too. So, and then they let me in, and then another thing they would do just in terms of how they handle the media is that, Ted, Bavorm, and Ron, they would come down here. They would hold this national press conference. And this is a great opportunity for all these people that are here from all the different teams, all the different NFL cities, to talk to those guys on the national podium. And sometimes it would be pretty embarrassing questions. It seems to be a little bit more focused on just X's and O's now.
Sure. Less variety show.
Yeah. And there's always, there's players that, had recently been arrested, and there's all this drama.
Sure.
That kind of thing. Then what they would do is they'd do a sidebar. And so they would go from that podium, but they'd understand, hey, man, we haven't talked to you in a couple of months. So you get some local questions.
Service the local beat.
Yeah. And it may not all be on the record, but it's just like, hey, I don't quite understand this situation. Things that get complicated, that's where you can get that. But those are some of the best conversations because you really get to hear what these guys feel about.
Yeah.
I think I was telling Huber on the way here the other day. Jason Lick is the general manager of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
Mm-hmm.
Took him to a Super Bowl, got Tom Brady. After Brady won that Super Bowl in that COVID year, then we're at this time of the year, and it's like, okay, is Brady going to come back for a second year for the Buccaneers? Because he proved to the world, I can get a ring, and I don't have to have Belichick, right? So he's kind of waffling, and, the Buccaneers didn't want to push him, but they wanted him back.
Yeah.
Because they didn't have a solution. And so one of the guys from Tampa Bay, a veteran, said to this Buccaneers general manager, what's out there? Free agency, 32 teams, 32 starting quarterbacks. What do you think? He says, there's usually most years, he says, there's only about 7 guys you want.
Sure.
That's how hard it is to get a quarterback.
Yeah.
And all the rest are just guys that are going to be there for a year or two and then get hurt or replaced or whatever. So that was his way of saying, do I want Tom Brady back? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because there's only about 7 other guys that we care about.
Yeah.
Most of them are all locked up anyway.
Do we want, Baker Mayfield or Jared Goff or Sam Darnold or some of these guys who are fine and have won games, but fans, we sit at home thinking, could you do a little bit better than Jared Goff? Could you do a little bit better? But imagine Brad Holmes at the podium today faced with the question of, do you want to look for a new quarterback? Do we want to set this guy aside to go off into the, maybe this is a good analogy. I've had friends, because I'm of that age, I'm in my late 20s now. I've had friends, they've had a girlfriend or longtime girlfriend or whatever. They said, I don't know if I feel it anymore. I might want to play the field a little bit more. And I'm like, I don't think you want that.
Right.
But you got a good thing. I don't think you want that.
Right.
And oftentimes men do that. And then they get out there and they realize that the streets are not so easy.
No,
it's not easy to just go play the field. And I think having a quarterback, not having a quarterback, probably very similar. And especially with Tom Brady.
Packer fans' frustration is real because they're told that, hey, we've got this great organization, we've got this great scouting department, we've got a good coach that we just renewed, et cetera, et cetera. And how does John Schneider fire Pete Carroll, hire some no-name new head coach and Mike McDonald, couple of drafts, because they had some losing seasons, so he helps himself there. Wheels and deals in free agency, gets a gift in his lap by Sam Darnold, a guy throw the football. What were the Vikings thinking? And the next thing you know, there he is holding up his second Lombardi in his 15 years out in Seattle.
Yeah.
And everybody's like, Aaron Rodgers, Jordan Love, let's go.
I think
let's go. And Gutekunst said this today. Like, hey, any regrets about the Micah Parsons deal that,
yeah,
two first and all the stuff that went into that exchange. No, he's a generational player and all that. Yeah, unfortunately, the ACL in the game against Denver. But he said, no, he says, you can't do that because pretty much you start racking up on a debt on the credit card. And, then you're in trouble for the next couple of years. So, and that when you hear that, that's a legitimate argument about the way they do business. And I think that was also his way of saying, I don't know how fancy I can get this year in free agency.
Oh, 100%. Can I give you I cut this audio from Brian Gutekunst. I thought this was maybe the best sound for shows like mine or for Bills. It's maybe not the most X's and O's soundbite, but in terms of offseason narratives, this is Goody. Somebody asked him something along the lines of, how does your team get over the top? It's clear that there's talent, that you have the right offense, the right quarterback. How do you get over the top? This is 25 seconds from Goody. I want your reaction to this.
I think we've talked a lot about this. Our ability to be more consistent in situational football and finishing off games. In a number of our games the past couple of years, we've been up in the games and just not been able to close them out. And our group's we got to get to that point. So I think we're on our way there. I really like the guys in our locker room, and I like the makeup of our team. But that's an area that we have to fix.
Do you think they're on their way there, as Goody said?
No.
It feels like a lot of the same things that were issues this season were the same issues we were talking about the previous season. And I thought a year more of seasoning, another year, because they're such a young roster, that some of those little execution errors, I thought some of that stuff would disappear, the penalties. And it kind of feels like they are who they've been the last few years. I don't think they're getting better. I don't think they're getting closer. I'm with you.
I just know from afar what Jonathan Gannon's resume is, your new defensive coordinator, and time with the Eagles, the struggles he had with the Arizona Cardinals, the struggles that Robert Saleh is going to have, with the Titans and some of these other franchises you're looking at, and Mike LaFleur taking over the Arizona Cardinals, Matt's younger brother. But I had a detailed conversation today with Gutekunst about this, and I said, the Denver game. See, because he's the one last year where they had that momentum, and they ended up, losing in the playoffs, and to the Eagles, which went out and just blew apart the Chiefs. So you stayed within some distance of that Eagles game, like you felt like you're that close. I don't think it felt that way. And he said, as excited as we were that we got that close in the way we played the Eagles, we still lost our last 3 games. This year, he has not said, and even though he just got renewed, and we lost our last 5 games, right?
Yeah.
And so how's that in terms of momentum and trends and kind of a head scratcher about? I agree with the renewal, because I didn't see anybody that got hired this year that necessarily was going to flip this team and get them over the top, like other examples that I could give. But I said to him, listen, after that game in Denver, and I've talked about this with you guys on the air, man, that locker room was different. Today I called it, I said to you guys, everybody was distraught. I said it was a vacuum in there. We walked in, and these guys, their jaws were literally hanging open. Like, oh my God, we've got so much further to go. That Broncos team with Bo Nix, they got better as the game wore on, and we kept on throwing every punch that we could and could not move the ball. And I said, I think that they part of them, or those players were like, how bad is Micah? Does anybody know? They're looking at their phones.
How bad is Watson?
Yeah, how bad is Watson, who ended up going to the hospital?
There were other players who got hurt, and Evan Williams went down in that game too.
But I know from a fact, the other thing though was just like, he picked it up and he said, and we had a 9-point lead in that game, and we'll let that thing.
Who said that? Goody?
Yeah, Goody.
Well, he should.
So I was trying to say. So after that, Brian, they go on to lose 5 in a row. Did the team lose that confidence, or he's good, man. Brian Gutekunst is the one that assessed in 2018. This is stale. This isn't, and it's time for Mike to go. He made that decision. He reported that to Mark Murphy. He was observing everything that was going on, maybe talking to a player or two off to the side. But he was just in touch with everything, coaching, players, facilities, everything on where that franchise was going. And they knew that this was the time that they had to let go of a Super Bowl coach with a big heart, but it's stale.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for him to try and explain. So how would you describe in a word or two those last 5 games?
Well,
and so he knew what I was talking about. Gave a long answer that said consistency. And essentially, I'm amazed that we still had plenty of good players on the field, and I couldn't see the second string, if you will, or the second wave step up with that opportunity. We got plenty of good players. Why in those last 5 games could we not get over the hump? And so they've got the same coach, and now they're going to have the same defensive staff to try and figure out what motivation, what play calling, what can we do to be more efficient, to execute these plays, and to not make stupid mistakes like Keyshawn Nixon jumping into a pile and getting unnecessary roughness and a first down against a Bears team that's going to end up scoring 25 points against you in the last quarter.
Well, this is the problem with the 5 straight losses at the end of the year. They didn't look like they wanted to play against Baltimore, which I hate, but I'll just set that to the side because I don't think that's indicative of much, unless you want to make the case they don't want to play for their coach, but let's set that to the side. You set the Minnesota game to the side, and I'll even set the Denver game to the side because I'd like to see if that game would have gone differently had 2 or 3 of their franchise players not gone down with massive injuries. So set that to the side. You had a double-digit lead in Chicago the first time, a double-digit second half lead the second time, a double-digit lead in Cleveland, and they let all these games slip away. I understand they were injured and they didn't have Micah against the Bears the second time, but they weren't injured in some of those other games. And if you're healthy enough and talented enough to get a second half double-digit lead, you should be healthy enough and talented enough to win. And I don't want to hear the same things from Goody and LaFleur this offseason and going into this season that they've been saying. We got to figure it out. We got to get the details right. We got to get the consistency right. We've had Packers fans calling Bill's show for 3 years saying, I'm sick of hearing the same stuff from the coach. And I'm to the point where I'm sick of hearing the same stuff for the coach and the GM when he says, I think we're close. I don't gather that they're getting closer. Whatever they're lacking, I don't think it's in that building right now.
So, and in December, so who can be the player that picks up the team and carries them on their back? Well, it couldn't have been Josh Jacobs because he was running on one leg for most of the end of the season, as we later found out.
Yeah.
It should have been Jordan Love. I mean, there's just should have been some way that guy could have pulled, the rabbit out of a hat and pulled out a win.
He played well in Chicago in the playoffs.
Maybe it could have been Xavier McKinney. You're now
that.
veteran, your safety that's making the play or makes a zone blitz, like a Witherspoon kind of play in the Super Bowl against the Patriots.
Or how often in Packers-Vikings games would Harrison Smith come out of nowhere and make a play and you're like, oh, it's inevitable.
Right.
He just found a way as a safety to be around the line of scrimmage when he needed to be, supporting the run. Like, there are these high-level players that just feel inevitable in certain moments. And McKinney, in that Denver game, he had a pick go right through his hands. If that dude just catches the ball this season, looks different.
A return on special teams. One of those momentum.
Well, let's be reasonable, Mike.
Changing, shifting kinds of things.
It's not Candyland.
Instead of, fumbling on the onside kick.
I don't know what we're going to do. I don't know what we're going to do because they are not just running it back. They're commandingly, confidently running it back. Do you think Rashawn Gary will be back next year? Do you believe that?
Yeah, you know why? Because Mike is not going to be ready.
They need somebody to play.
Week 1.
Yeah.
And, JJ Enagbare had a good year, and he's probably going to get more money than they're willing to pay. So they need Rashawn Gary. Rather than give up, he's still got a year left.
Mm-hmm.
But, in terms of what that would cost them to just release him or all of that kind of thing.
Do you think they'd restructure him, push money down the road on him to bring him back, or do you think they just bring him back and eat it? That's probably what they should do. But they might feel that they want more money to do other things, and therefore they need to push Rashawn Gary out.
I don't know that because that's just pure speculation on my part, and sometimes you can be surprised by that.
Sure,
but I still haven't been able to figure out. And Rashawn didn't talk to us for the last month. He talked to us when they were cleaning out their lockers, but everybody kind of understood the situation. But only Rashawn Gary can explain. And maybe he had some frustrations about the calls and the schemes or the assignments he was supposed to have. And, the other thing, too, is that you can't just judge these guys by quarterback sacks, even though that's what they're paid for. That's an exciting play, et cetera. But some of his misses against Derrick Henry in the Ravens game at Lambeau Field, that was horrible.
Yeah. Oh, so I thought you were defending him by saying, hey, don't just judge him on sacks. You were saying, don't just rip him on the sacks, also rip him on the other stuff because that was bad too.
And he wasn't around to say, hey, I'm out here playing with, 2 bad ankles.
Sure.
Yep. It was inexcusable.
Yeah.
He just phoned it in.
You can't get you can't look fat and slow on one play. You can't look like Nick Perry on one play and then get blocked by a wide receiver on the next. Either you're a big, strong, slow, bull rushing guy, or you're fast, slim. Like that. Those two plays can't coexist or shouldn't coexist in the same play.
I think Rashawn Gary's back. I think they think the world of Lucas Van Ness.
Sure.
And the progress that he was making. And how unfortunate was that that foot injury he had. Then he tried to come back and he didn't. I thought it was a really good line of questioning today, saying, you guys are always like, this guy is not going to touch the field until Doc says he's 110%. By the way, they changed team doctors.
Yeah, and I don't know. I think that whole thing is reputation. Well, they're very conservative. Man, I don't know. It feels like they've brought guys back before players have been ready the last couple of years.
But this guy been doing it for 30 years. Semi-retires in the middle of the season, which, kind of weird. Whatever, but 2 or 3 instances we can think of last year where they tried to bring a guy back and he wasn't ready. You know, and he went back for another 2 or 3 weeks.
Which, if the reputation matched reality in Green Bay, shouldn't happen. Or shouldn't happen very often. Certainly shouldn't happen with multiple players in a span of a couple of seasons. So we're going to go out tonight, keep our ear to the ground for all of the latest hubbub, the rumors around Indianapolis.
Absolutely.
All of the talkers.
Sure.
Okay. All right. Good.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate this. Thank you, Mike. You've been working hard.
Thank you, pal.
We'll be back in just a couple minutes. We're live here at the Combine. Don't go anywhere.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
With Pella, you get so much more than stunning windows and doors. You get the Pella experience. Pella manufactures, sells, installs, and services every product. And with a 10-year labor warranty, your windows and doors are worry-free for years to come. If something goes wrong, we're here to handle it because you work with the same team from start to finish.
Right now, get 0% interest for up to 48 months.
Visit PellaWI.com today.
Really struggled with
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Welcome back. Hour number 2 of the Wisco Sports Show continuing on. We're presented by In on the River in Trempealeau. I maybe found myself in Trempealeau this last week. And not maybe, I straight up did. We were doing a little pub crawl. It was more of a pub road trip, really. Started at Liney Lodge up in Chippewa Falls and just meandered. Went through Fall Creek, down through Hickston, Blair Taylor, down through Cooley Country, all the way to Trempealeau. We ended at Cat Daddy's. Some very good beers. Liney's original there, too. Outstanding. And In on the River is a place where you could stay. You want your Western Wisconsin giveaway? I can give you lots of spots that you should hit up. Most notably, of course, the Mississippi River and the bluffs right there. But Sullivan's Supper Club or the Trempealeau Hotel when summer rolls around. El Morro right around the way. Love that. I give you some wine recommendations as well. Dave from Monona, you didn't hear that. I don't need to hear about that when we get back. So you can make your reservation, make your plan for the summer. In on the River, WI.com, 608-534-7784. Rick and others commenting about that Mike Clemens segment. That was a great segment. We talked a little bit about Rashawn Gary. And I'll read to you. I don't have all of my studio bells and whistles, so I can't play you as much audio as I'd like to, and it's not going to sound as good as I would like it to. But I did see that Brian Gutekunst was talking about Rashawn Gary today and asked, and he basically talked about how they expected him back. And I'll read you the quote or read you some of the tweets from the Packers beat members who were there. This is from Lily Zhao, Brian Gutekunst on Rashawn Gary. Quote, he was impactful toward the second half of the season, maybe not as much as he was in the first, but Rashawn's got all the talent in the world, and he's produced at a high level for us since when he's been here. We would expect that next year as well. I think it might start to become a numbers game. And am I going crazy? Did we talk about this on Friday? No, I know when we talked about this. I did Pack-A-Day with Andy and Jacob Westendorf on Sunday night, and we were talking about bold Packers offseason predictions. And Jacob predicted, or maybe it was Andy, I don't remember. It was a good point, whoever it was, made the point that I think Rashawn Gary's going to be back. And I think it's just a warm body theory. Mike is hurt. Devontae Wyatt's an interior line, but still, that's another guy who's coming off a significant injury. And Igbari might be leaving. That leaves you with a bunch of day 3 picks from last year and Lucas Van Ness. So not to reduce the Rashawn Gary conversation to the basic question of who's on third, but who is on third? Who's playing edge rusher? So they might bring him back just because. Now, the question that I then got into with Mike, and it's not really one that interests me because I don't find salary cap conversations to be all that interesting, especially on the radio, but the Packers could, lessen Rashawn Gary's cap number. They could actually save money next year. They'd have to extend him and push out money and restructure or guarantee more money. It would cost them down the line one way or another. But I don't know. Guys, I think Rashawn Gary is who he is. He is who he is. Thomas says Gary's high watermark was 9 sacks. I have another segment or another comment here. Clemhead Mike, looking forward to connecting with some of you guys when I'm back in studio next week on the phone. Said Gary had one good year and made bank. I don't think Rashawn Gary's lazy. I don't think he's fat and happy off his contract. I just think he's not that good. I just don't think he's that good. I don't think he's holding out on the Packers. I don't think he got paid and stopped trying. I just don't think he's that good. I think he's the same guy he's been since high school, then went to Michigan. All the talent in the world, all the measurables in the world never really amounted to production. Well, that's because he's getting double and triple teamed. He's such a noteworthy player. All the offenses are keying on him. Fine. Okay. Sure. goes to the NFL. He's a top 15 pick. Well, he's a developmental guy. He needs some refining. He needs some polishing. Just wait. Okay. And then 2 years into his career, well, Grant, you can't just look at sacks. You need to look at pressures and hurries. Okay, fine. Now 2 years later, well, Grant, you this, that. Guys, we're so far down the Rashawn Gary road. And you say, well, he hasn't been the same since the ACL tear. I think he mostly has. He's mostly been the same guy he's been all the way back to high school. This is just kind of who he is. Now, he might, but for the grace of God, stick on this Packers roster into this offseason, into next year, because they need someone to play the position. They just need someone to line up and play, even if they're not great. So no, I don't think there's some deep conspiracy. It's funny because Clemens, if you've joined us in the last couple of minutes, Clemens was here for the first segment of the hour, and he said, well, Grant, you can't just judge Rashawn Gary on sacks. I'm like, oh, Christ, what? Here we go. Mike, tell me about how pressures and this and that and knockdowns and hurries. And what Mike said is, he also against Baltimore played really, really poorly against the run. I'm like, oh, so Mike, you're not telling us that we need to look deeper than sacks, that we can't just judge him on sacks. You're telling us, hey, don't just criticize him for his inability to rush the passer, because he sucks at everything else too, which is not where I thought he was going, but I'm glad he did. I think Jeff Hafley and others would have made the case down the stretch last year, and if you were to really poke and prod Goody publicly and say, hey, say something nice about Rashawn Gary, he'd probably say something like, oh, I think he improved it, playing around a little bit. I think Rashawn Gary's future is bleak, but his presence may survive just because they need someone to play. Anonymous Pete texts in, and I think this is a fine question. If we can get another Packers voice on here, I see Aaron Nagler sitting over there. I might try to grab him for the last 10 minutes of the show. We'll see. He'd be a good person to ask this. Anonymous Pete asks, why not keep Enigbare? Teams need 3 solid guys at edge. Why not Parsons, Van Ness, and Enigbare? I don't know. A lot of people are saying, well, he's going to make too much money. Well, when you're considering just keeping Rashawn Gary, who costs more and who is a worse player, Enigbare is far from perfect, but I could count on him once or twice a game to make a play. I think one of their biggest plays all season, maybe their biggest play all season outside of the Detroit game on Thanksgiving, was Enigbare coming down the line and collapsing and lighting up Monungai on 3rd and 1 to force the 4th and 1 where Caleb Williams threw the interception to Keyshawn Nixon. That play was massive. There's no way Rashawn Gary's making that play. I haven't seen him make that play his entire career. He's never made that play. I do not know, man. A couple of texts here. Sorry, I've been neglecting the text line. Jim in Cottage Grove, Skyline chili to me, when I had it, is more like a thick tomato soup with some vegetables and hamburger in it. Yeah, I know there's some details on how you got to order it. I got to order it dry and not wet. And Jesus is taking the wheel. And by Jesus, I mean Bill Michaels, which you assumed correctly. Madtown Ryan says, hey, Grant, I agree with you. I'm getting sick of the same rhetoric because it's never the truth. It's an eagle-eye view. And when you get the same S every time, this is the comment from Brian Gutekunst that I played. And this isn't going to make for awesome sound on the live stream. I'm sorry. Without a producer back in the studio, I just don't have a great way to play sound. I'm sorry. So this is going to have to do. This is what I thought to be the most interesting portion of Goody's press conference, because he was basically asked, why can't your guys get it done? Like, what's the next step? What do you guys got to figure out? And this was his answer. Here's 25 seconds.
I think we've talked a lot about this. Our ability to be more consistent in situational football and finishing off games. A number of our games the past couple of years, we've been up in the games and just not been able to close them out. And our group's we got to get to that point. So I think we're on our way there. I really like the guys in our locker room, and I like the makeup of our team. But that's an area that we have to fix.
I hope they're on their way there. As we discussed with Mike, I don't know what we've seen that would give us strong belief that they're on their way there. You know what I mean? Like, I like the guys in the room. I know we're getting closer. So why is it the same issues? Why is it that you're still having the mental lapses and you can't call out protections on the O-line and you can't exchange coverages on the back end and you're still having crushing penalties in the 2-minute? Like, it's all the same stuff. So the first part of that comment I agree with. You need to get the details. The details. We talked about this with Mike Felger at the Super Bowl. I thought it was some of the best sound we've had on the show in the last calendar year. They're the little things, the details, they're just not buttoned up, and it costs them. Yes. And Goody was saying that. I agree. The next part, I'm not sure to say we have the right guys in the building and we're on our way. You're the 7th seed again. And it wasn't just because of injuries. You stop it with the injuries. If they lose in the divisional round in Seattle, then it's because of the injuries. And it's fine. They were the 7th seed and they blew almost every game in which they held a lead. And then they blew it again to Chicago on the road. Your rival. I don't understand why we can be like, we're on our way. I don't think we are. Maybe, but I have no concrete evidence to believe that with any certainty, as much as you can have certainty in such things in professional sports. We'll take a break, 5 minutes, come back and get to a little bit of audio from both Jeff Hafley and Jon-Eric Sullivan next.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 5 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 4 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
All right, welcome back. A couple segments left here. The NFL Scouting Combine 2026. I've had a couple of people on the live stream saying it. At one point, it gets a little ridiculous, right? Guys running in underwear. We're making a big deal out of it. Guys, I agree with you. I've fought this battle with Zach Heilprin for a long time. I don't find the 40-yard dash. That's like I could throw a medicine ball 40 yards. We're judging people on their ability to run 40 yards fast. What about 100-meter, 400-meter dash? That's entertaining. I would watch that. So, yeah, some of these drills, not for me. But we're here in the media center. We are tapping on expert guests, listening to those in position of football power at the podium, which you're going to hear a little bit coming up. Jon-Eric Sullivan and Jeff Hafley. He's the press conference. I can't quit, man. What can I say? A couple of texts are coming in. People say Love makes too much money. It's what the position makes. Edge is premium. Pay the man. I don't know how much Enigbari would stand to make. Maybe I can find some projections for you there, Pete. Rickford Spencer said, I dumped Gary post June 1 to kick down the cap and sign Enigbari. I don't know. This text says, what establishment did you frequent in Fall Creek? Well, first of all, which establishment, which one don't I? Fall Creek is outstanding. Meet me at Chicken Chasers, sir. But we were at is it Autumn Harvest? I'd never been there before. I got to say, Autumn. So a little bit about outside town. Nobody parties right in Fall Creek. I mean, downtown. So maybe it's more of a Chippewa Falls address over towards Lake Howley. But then to get back to 94 from Autumn Harvest, you head down through Fall Creek, past Big Falls, Beaver Creek, on 94. What is that, on K through Fall Creek, down to 94. Then you get on Hickson, you go south. Everybody knows the ordeal. So there you go. There's our highway driving obligation. We fulfilled that for the day. Can I play you a little bit of sound from Jeff Hafley today? Now, one of the things that I found, actually, I don't want to save Jeff Hafley. I want to do Jon-Eric Sullivan. And I'm pulling up the cut numbers here because I'm solo. I'm producing the show as we go. One of the things that I found most interesting about Jon-Eric Sullivan's press conference today, he's the guy who left Green Bay, was in Green Bay for a long time, has had a bunch of general manager interviews over the years, but has never yet landed the job. He finally got it. He hires Jeff Hafley. I found this answer to be interesting, and you can't hear the questions in the press conference, but what I surmised from context clues and what I could hear is the question was something along the lines of why Jeff Hafley and not the others, and why hire Jeff Hafley so fast without even having interviews with this guy or that guy or the other guy. So here's again, Jon-Eric Sullivan at the podium earlier today.
I could not have been more impressed with Kelvin or Patrick. They did a phenomenal job. They were legitimate candidates. The truth of the matter is there's a pace and a timing as to which you have to move to make sure that you're going to get your guy. You can't get left holding the bag. At that point in the process, it was clear to us that Hafley was who we wanted to go after, and he had other options on the table. So there was a timing element to where we had to get on down the road to make sure that we weren't going to lose him to somebody else. Cannot say enough good things about Patrick Graham. I was with him in Green Bay. He's a phenomenal coach. He will continue to do great things in this league. And Kelvin was very, very impressive. And I have no doubt that he'll be a head coach in this league one day.
So basically talking about how we realized Jeff Hafley was our guy. I mean, if you find your guy, hire him. I'm not going to hold that against you. But to then talk further in detail about how we moved and we hired him because if we hadn't, he had other options. Jeff Hafley in his interview today at the podium also talked about how he had 6 interviews in a span of 5 days after that Bears loss in Green Bay. I don't know how many jobs Jeff Hafley could have had he wanted them. But I think we can conservatively say, just on some clues and reading between the lines of both Hafley's avail today and Jon-Eric Sullivan, I think it's reasonable to think Hafley could have had 2, 3, maybe even 4 jobs. 6 or 7 jobs is a little extreme, but 2, 3, 4. And I feel like unfortunately, have become the anti-Jeff Hafley guy, and I don't want to because I think he's a really impressive coach. He's certainly impressive at the podium, and I know a lot of people in Green Bay liked him. I don't necessarily understand how you can coordinate a defense for 2 years that was fine, good. I thought the job that he did last season without Micah Parsons was more impressive. He still had good players, don't get me wrong, like Edgerrin Cooper's a good player. Quay Walker's a solid player. He was dinged up towards the end of the year, but he's a solid player. Xavier Kinney's a very good player. Evan Williams was a rookie. He was a very good player. So he had good players last year. He didn't have a great player. He got that this year. But I think his defense was more impressive a year ago. We talked about it, until we were blue in the face this year, that post, November 11th? I often used the Giants game as a cutoff point. That feels right, doesn't it? That after that, I was really underwhelmed. And that slide started before Micah Parsons got hurt. Just felt like his defense was uninspired. I didn't feel at all like I felt watching Vrabel or certainly McDonald in the Super Bowl. Now, McDonald gets to be judged on a different curve. Like, he's the gold standard. So not everyone can be, I always say this about quarterbacks. Not everyone can be Tom Brady. And I say this in the NBA, not everyone can be LeBron. Doesn't mean that Giannis sucks or that Jokic sucks. They're not LeBron, sure. So Jeff Hafley's not Mike McDonald. I'm watching the Super Bowl. Like, look at this creative blitz, the way that Witherspoon's being used. I'm watching Nick Kerr and Mike Vrabel, who coordinate the Patriots defense. They're bringing 2 linebackers in an X pattern up the middle, and Collinsworth is geeking out on the broadcast, looking at how they're being used. I never got that from Jeff Hafley. So back to my original point, how does a guy whose defense I thought mostly underwhelmed, not to mention, you give up 25 points in the second half, or was it in the fourth quarter? It was in the second half, to your rival in the playoffs to blow a 23 or 21-3 lead. How does that guy then charge into the offseason as a guy who has 3, 4 head coach jobs that could have been his? And I think Jeff Hafley's impressive, man. It's just a little much for me. Does that make me a bad guy? Does that make me a hater? I hope not. It's just a little much for me, that's all. I asked Jeff Hafley a question today. Would you like to hear it? I was standing around. I thought of Zach Heilprin because I often I'll go to pressers if I can, if I cover a Brewer game or, if I'm at the Combine like this week. And if I'm standing around, like, I'm going to participate, I'm just going to stand there and waste space. I asked Jeff Hafley, you guys let a lot of games go last year. I believe the wording I used was, you had a real problem closing games last season. So what did you learn from that? And what can you take to Miami as a head coach now, a team that's going to need to be taught how to win?
Yeah, I think you can't look at that as being black and white. There's some games where we didn't close, and there's other games where we closed with an interception in the end zone or a 4th and 1 stop. So I think you got to look game by game and try to figure out why you didn't. Was it scheme? Was it putting players in good positions, bad positions? I think just like anything else, when we study our tape, and right now what we're doing is we're studying the 2 years at Green Bay, the film. It's what did we do well over the 2 years? What didn't we do well? And some of those situations we didn't do well. Some of those situations we're in position to make a play and we didn't make the play. Some of the situations I should have made a better call, right? So you kind of got to look at everything and you got to get better in everything that you do. But win or lose, you got to figure that out on the tape. It ain't just about when you don't make the play at the end of the game.
So he went on to make the point of, we closed a lot of games too. Now we can be fungible, flexible with what is a closed game. But I'm just looking at the games that they won here. They beat Detroit and Washington 27-13, 2018 in weeks 1 and weeks 2. I don't know that we would look at those as games the Packers closed either way. I think they got a nice lead, and the game eventually expired. They didn't close against Cleveland. They didn't close against Dallas, although the offense gave them ample opportunity to do so. I'm not sure they clinched against Cincinnati. Now, they closed against Arizona. There's one. I would also argue that Micah Parsons closed against Arizona. So you closed against the Cardinals. There's one. Pittsburgh, the offense ran away with it. Carolina, you lost. Philly, you lost. The Giants, they closed. Who was the interception at the end of the game? Was that Evan Williams who pulled it into the end zone? Okay, so there's two. Minnesota, they didn't need to close. Detroit, they didn't close. The offense closed. Chicago, the defense closed. So there's three. Keyshawn Nixon's interception. And then they didn't win another game. So there's 3 games that they closed. And I think there are, let's just say Dallas. Trying to be fair. Denver, Chicago. So there's 4 games they didn't close. And again, I think I'm being generous giving Arizona to the Packers defense. I think that was more, honestly, I just think that was more Micah Parsons having the game of his life and Arizona, for whatever reason, allowing him to do so. Never really understood that. I think the idea that they closed a bunch of games too is a little overrated. Closed a couple. I'll give them credit. I don't know, man. The Packers are struggling to close. They're struggling with details. We heard Goody talk about that today too, and I don't have a ton of reason to believe that that's just going to get better with the guys they have in the building, because why would it? They've had chances to get better. Final thoughts, any straggler texts or comments, so hit me up, 608-321-1670. We'll be back for one final segment here at the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine.
This is the Wisco Sports Show with Grant Bills on the Wisconsin Sports Zone Radio Network.
The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 3 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 2 minutes. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 1 minute. The Wisco Sports Show will resume in 30 seconds.
Final segment. Wrapping things up here in a couple minutes. Our first broadcast this week at the NFL Scouting Combine. Appreciate In on the River and Road America, our presenting sponsors tonight. Thank you for all the texts. 608-321-1670. Madtown Ryan says, Grant, I may have missed it. If I did, I apologize. What are your thoughts on the memo going out to season ticket holders not to sell their tickets on the secondary market? I did a podcast earlier with our friend Bart Winkler. We talked about this, about the season ticket system. It's tricky. I think part of the charm or the appeal of Packers season tickets is how long the list is. So it's almost a bragging right to tell their fan bases, I'm on the season ticket list and I'm 30,000th in line. You brag about that, right? But then part of the problem with that is when you finally get your tickets when you're 65 or 70, like, do you want to go to a football game? Maybe not. But you feel like you have to because you waited all that time for the tickets. I don't know. Never thought I'd get this far. I just put my name on the list because it's what you do. So, there's a lot to be said about fan etiquette at Lambeau. Everyone always complains. They always yell at me when I stand up. They always yell at this and that. It's like, can I just issue a public service announcement? I'm going to look right into the camera when I say this. I am sick of sporting events and concerts and driving and being in spaces where you're interacting with other people. And then sometimes you're relying on other people. I'm sitting next to you in my section. I'm standing behind you at a concert. I'm behind you on the highway and we're trying to get to our destination. Can everybody just stop making everything about them? If the entire stadium is standing up and cheering, just stand up and cheer. If your entire section is sitting because it's a calm moment in the game and you're the drunk a-hole who's standing up and yelling, sit down. Don't make it about you. Stop making it about you. If you're sitting in the left lane and there's 7 cars behind you and you're in your car thinking, well, I don't know what the big deal is. I'm going 76 and the speed limit's 70. That's not the point. Get out of the way. What you do should not impact others negatively or positively. That's the one rule you have to follow going through life. Do whatever you want as long as it doesn't negatively impact somebody else, as long as it doesn't mess up my day, as long as it doesn't make someone's life harder. And we always at these sporting events with drunk people, I want to yell, I want to scream, or I want everyone in front of me to sit down. Well, guess what? If it's 3rd and short and it's a massive game, people are going to stand up and cheer. And if you don't like it, you could stand up and cheer, or you could sit down and accept it because that's the way the world works. Stop being a-holes. Just blend in and go with the flow and coexist with everybody around you. Like, if what you're doing seems like that large of a departure from all the people around you, it's on you. You're the a-hole. You're the jerk. So there's always so much to be made about, well, season ticket holders are so old and they always sell their tickets. When they do, it's to opposing fans. Or, they never want to stand up and cheer. We don't have a home field advantage. Just, if you're someone who feels like you sit all the time, stand up and cheer a little bit more. And if you're someone who only wants to yell and scream, then just be a little bit more cognizant of those around you and we're all fine. We're all fine. Just stop. It's the same at concerts. I don't care if you chit-chat a little bit with the person next to you. It just shouldn't impact my ability to hear and enjoy the concert. You know what I mean? You don't have to be silent, but my thing at the concert should not be impacted by your thing. Same at sporting events. Same when we're driving. You should not go that dangerously fast or that dangerously slow or sit in a lane and block me just because you feel like you can. A little bit of a rant to end the show. Sorry about that. We'll continue to bring on some guests. We'll have more guests as the week goes along. We're just getting started at the Combine. Thanks for representing sponsors tonight, Road America and In on the River. We're presenting the show every Monday and Tuesday. Be back tomorrow, 10 local time with the Bill Michaels Show. And back 22 hours from now, more guests starting tomorrow night from the NFL Scouting Combine. Thanks for listening. Be back tomorrow.